9 months in going into my own, after quitting a 15-year career of having a beautiful salary, an amazing reputation, 6 weeks of vacation, anything you can imagine anybody would wish to have in building their entire career success from, I ended up in the emergency room. Not once, but twice. Nothing was physically wrong with me. It was just me in my own head and the paralyzing fear of the unknown. This was the first time I ever faced so much uncertainty and risk and self-doubt because I had left a comfort zone that I had known for so much, for the freedom that I wanted to work on my own. It wasn't an easy thing to leave corporate. I had wonderful camaraderie, people that I knew and that I loved. But over the years, in drinking the Kool-Aid and climbing the corporate ladder and having to deal with all of these politics, I just got sick of it. I felt like my creativity was outgrowing the limits that I was being put in by working in a corporation. But the thing that terrified me, and the reason why I ended up in the emergency room, was the F word. Failure. I was terrified of it, and I didn't even really know why. And this is what this video is all about, is helping you understand why is it that the concept of failure or the fear of failure paralyzes you or causes you to overthink or procrastinate or become a perfectionist and not ever take action and instead get stuck in this loop of being scared of the unknown. Hi everyone, my name is Carlos and I am a FAILBLAZER. This is a concept that I designed to help you better understand how to reframe failure as the fuel to help you create a path for success. I'm on a journey of writing my first book called FAILBLAZER, and on this channel I want to share frameworks, tools, and some of my personal stories that have helped me overcome challenges, difficulties, and how to approach new goals and new obstacles without the fear of failure. So I want to start at the very beginning. We weren't born to be afraid of failure. So where did that come from? And one of the things that through my research and personal experience, I found there are 6 conditioning factors that have shaped and affected how we relate to the concept of failure, whether it's trying to take on a brand new goal or a new challenge or a new obstacle, or dealing with it when it happens to us. So I want to start with the first condition, which is your family and upbringing. Now, this is mostly shaped by the people you look up to, whoever were your guardians or your parents or parental figures, and how they dealt with failure, how they dealt with risk, shaped a lot of how you look at taking risks, taking chances, approaching the unknown. If you were in a very stable and loving upbringing, there are 2 ways that you're going to be able to navigate through failure. One, you might be protected from it, which then when you face the real world, everything becomes very, very difficult to navigate. Or 2, you were exposed to it little by little to learn how to deal with failure early on. Your family introduced you or exposed you to some things where you were allowed to fail. Fail in very small stakes, small risk environments, so that you can learn to cope with it and learn how to psychologically understand it. How you grew up seeing this, the way your parents or parental figures dealt with it, shaped a lot of this for you. This is why a lot of people, when they grow up, they always go to their therapist and it's all about blaming it on the parents. But here's something you need to understand. You got to give them grace, because whatever parents or parental figures raised you, they were doing the best with everything they got. And if you come from an environment that did not provide you with that safety, belonging, stability, or love, nonetheless, there are ways that you could still navigate through what happened to you and shift it into what happened for you. One example for me is growing up, my parents were extremely proud of us when we grew up, and they always recognized us for all the things that we could do. And anytime we showed any sense of talent or skill towards something, they'd always encouraged us that we can be anything we wanted. One of the things that I always felt this as a byproduct of it is this sense of guilt or responsibility. If ever I failed at anything, I would let my parents down. So that was something I never really addressed, rather than just accepting myself, regardless of what the outcome was, is knowing that what is it that I can learn from that? How can I grow from it? And so that was something that I needed to understand myself. The second condition is the education system. You probably went to school and you noticed that the first time you were ever evaluated or anything was what kind of grades did you get. So if you were competent in a particular subject, you'd get an A, B, C, D, or F. So F actually stands for failure. And getting that first F was definitely something that you would want to avoid. Or if ever you did get one of those things, it was frowned upon. You were looked at, you were judged, you were laughed at. So this was a system that was already designed for you to be exposed to failure and not really be given the tools in knowing how to navigate through it. I think about the time when I was in school in 4th grade and it was geography. I'm an English as a second language kid, just moved to the States. And our teacher in geography class asks a question saying something to the effect, hey, where can you find the map? And I accidentally mispronounced a word. And instead of saying sheet, it sounded like shit. And of course, everybody kind of looked at me and laughed at me. And although I may have been technically right, I didn't properly describe what it was because of my limited language. It just felt really weird and awkward to say something the wrong way. And that peer pressure of what will people think or how will they look at you if you get the wrong answer or if you say something the wrong way, that creates a lot of anxiety, a lot of pressure for you to get everything perfect, for you to make sure that you double check that you don't get anything wrong. And so that's where fear starts showing up for you, especially when you are doing any public speaking or you're going to be saying anything in front of a crowd of people because you're afraid of being judged. The third condition is the cultural levels of success that are created for you. Society tells us you want to have a good life. That means you have to go to college, you have to find a partner, you have to have children. There are these norms or unwritten rules that society has built for us to tell us what is success and what is failure. And if you don't meet any of those criteria, then you are someone who's different, someone who's weird, someone who takes all these strange risks, or someone who is a failure. So before thinking about taking an entrepreneurial step or deciding to pick a particular career or going a direction that fuels your heart, you start overthinking and start comparing it to what will society accept? What will they think if I do this or I do that? And so that becomes a trap of us playing small, playing it safe. The fourth condition is money. This is where the way that your parents and people around you that you respected and saw handled money, this helped you decide whether it was risky or it was safe or it was smart to be able to use these resources towards that said thing. If your parents would stress about making mortgage or rent, or they're conscientious about budget, or if you saw them negotiate everything they saw, right? There might be a scarcity mindset around money, and that is just something that gets embedded into your programming. So you start looking at money as a scarce resource. Whereas you may have also grown up in an environment where money is abundant. If you think to the concept that you do what you believe in and the rest will follow because you follow your passion, then money will come to your lap and things will work out the way they do. It's a hard way of thinking when you live in a reality where you have to pay your bills, pay your mortgage. But your relationship with money also ties towards your status of whether you are successful or if you're a failure. If you have nice clothing, if you live in a nice neighborhood, if you have money in your account, if you're able to hang out with a certain group of people, this tells you what kind of status you're in. Therefore, you are in a successful status or you're in a failing status if you can't do any of that. So some of these things stop us, paralyze us, or can inflict a little bit of harm towards our own self-talk when we think about money and as it's connected to our own personal worth. The fifth one is social comparison and visibility. This is where you see most of how everybody lives on social media, and what they're showing you, what's called the highlight reel effect, right? They only are showing the best parts of their life, but they don't really talk about what's happening behind closed doors. Maybe they're struggling through an interpersonal relationship in their personal life with a friend, with a family member. Maybe they're going through a health challenge. And so we tend to think that life should only be a highlight reel. And what happens is that this affects our mental health. And a lot of people use comparison as that trap to say, I should be in this particular part of my life because of this is my age, because they're looking at somebody else who's navigating through life at a different chapter than their very own. And so this is where this very popular and insightful quote, which I learned from Chris Do, comparison is the thief of joy. So the more that you compare yourself to others, the more you're going to fall into that trap of spiraling into negative self-talk and not really take the action that you need to fulfill your own purpose. And the sixth one is language and labeling. Notice the kind of words that you use when you're talking to yourself or when you're talking to others, especially when you're going through a difficult time. So there are a few words that I noticed in my own personal language that I needed to reframe. For example, the word should. this is what I should be doing. Or where people are telling you, you know what you should do, they start shooting all over you. This word has so much heaviness and weight and judgment placed upon it without you even knowing it, that it actually creates a lot more pressure and burden for you. And so you got to be careful on how you use certain words, especially when you're talking to yourself or when others are talking to you. Try to take it like a grain of sand. Another word that shows up a lot is the word they, right? They is this vague group of people that are watching you, that are observing you, that are judging your every move. Who are they? What are they gonna think if I do this? What are they gonna think if I post that? What are they gonna think if I'm going to make this video? Who cares about them? Because they're not the ones who have to live your life and walk in your footsteps. So often we put so much pressure on our decisions about what they are gonna think. A few other words that could get in your way are the word just, hard, ready, enough. And I won't break down every single one of them, but you may want to consider looking at what are the words that are weighing down on you making the right decisions that are in alignment with your purpose. And so be very aware and conscientious about the language that you're using when you're talking to yourself and also with the people you're talking with around you. So here's where I want to land the plane. These are just the 6 conditioning factors that made you who you are. And maybe one of them, 2 of them, or all of them had a big role in how you look at the word failure and how you relate to it. As a FAILBLAZER, what we do is we actually become really aware, really educated, and competent in understanding what it means to us. Then we look for ways to reframe it, right? Try to pick one of these 6 things and dig deeper to better understand yourself. So you can work on how can I reframe the way I think I look at the world? Could it be possible that there are limiting beliefs that are stopping you from executing at your greatest potential? And so the next step would be take a look at one of those 6 conditioning factors. Try to see if there's a way that you can reshape, reframe, or question to see if there's a better possibility on how to look at the world, how to look at your challenges, how to look at your goals, and how to look at failure differently. If you like this content, make sure you like it, comment below, and share it with someone that would benefit from it. I appreciate it. Until next time.